Everything is so challenging today. None of us have ever been through what we've been through today. And I'm sure you're seeing even in addiction and things like that. So we're going to really talk about today. We're going to go into mindfulness, yoga, aromatherapy. We're going to also go into some other things. It's hard because people can't go in person to different meetings and things like that. So what we're going to do is hi, everybody. Thank you for joining Stamp of Approval podcast today. As you know, we've been doing a series for the COVID-19 and the stressful times that people are going through, bringing in lots and lots of awesome professionals, different doctors and attorneys and therapists, CPAs, lender, to answer all of your questions during these times. I'm Kristin Stampini, and I own multiple businesses. We opened up our virtual assistant business at the end of 2017, where we work with small business owners. We employ, train, hire, help them employ people through virtual assistants at a very affordable price. We also work in real estate. We have a real estate brokerage that we just opened up a couple months ago. We also have a real estate team. I'm a real estate coach for the Craig Proctor systems and coach people all around North America. And then we also have a real estate investment company. So today I'd like to introduce my guest, Youre Laudison. And Youre is a licensed mental health counselor, a master certified addiction professional. Youre has been providing education, healing, and therapy for groups and individuals over 15 years. Youre has a master's degree in clinical psychology, as well as extensive training and experience in addiction treatment, which I know is very challenging today, right? Trauma, military populations in many treatment modalities. What is it?
Modalities.
Oh, I'm sorry, modalities. Youre has provided individual group therapy and consultation at all levels of treatment, from inpatient to private practice. Youre has been teaching restorative and alignment-based yoga to individuals in treatment from crisis stabilization, substance abuse, rehabilitation, and community classes. Youre's passion is to use science and holistic practices to help others heal mind, body, and spirit. Thank you, and welcome to Youre today. Welcome, Youre. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. Very well.
Good. So we're going to really talk about today, we're going to go into mindfulness, yoga, aromatherapy. We're going to also go into some other things. Everything is so challenging today. None of us have ever been through what we've been through today. And I'm sure you're seeing, even in addiction and things like that, it's hard because there's not, people can't go in person, right? To go to different meetings and things like that. What we're going to do is we're going to try to put you at ease that there are people here. Youre, you're doing a lot of things virtually now, right?
Yeah, so I've been actually doing my private practice completely online for over a year. So I'm very well versed. I've used Zoom. Now I use Simple Practice, which is my electronic medical record. But yeah, so that's been my primary practice for over a year. So I'm super comfortable with it. And I can help clients who aren't comfortable, because this is new for a lot of people. So, really showing them that this can be a way to connect and to reach out, is really important. They talk about in AA that the phone weighs like 50 pounds, right? So when you're stressed and you want to reach out, it's hard. So reaching out in a new way virtually can be difficult for a lot of people. Now, for some people, not so much, but for a lot of people, it can.
Right. And, a lot of people that never were depressed before are depressed. They're scared. They're angry. They're going through a lot of different emotions, right? So I can completely understand. I've been through a lot myself, so I can completely understand it. I've had a lot of hardship in my life, and so I can relate to what a lot of people are going through today. And bringing on these professionals is to help you get through everything that you can. And Youre, I'm going to just go ahead and let you get started.
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I like to do with my clients and with people when I'm sharing things is start with a mindfulness practice. So what I'd like to do very briefly is just do a little grounding practice with you. So whether you're sitting in a chair or whether you are sitting on your couch or whatever, just focus on the feet on the ground. So maybe put both feet on the earth. If they're not already, whether you have shoes on or not, just kind of notice that. Bring your awareness to the feet. Notice, maybe wiggle your toes a little bit. Yes, and close the eyes if you're comfortable so that you can bring full awareness to that. Notice the earth supporting you. Notice whatever surface you are seated on supporting you. Maybe even allowing your breath to deepen. Good. Preparing for this time together. Relaxing your shoulders away from your ears. And just checking in with your body and your mind and noticing anything you're working with right now, any sensations, any emotions, without judgment. Good. And let's take one more deep breath together. And exhale slowly. Good, and then allow the eyes to flutter open. Good. And if you were here, I might share with you one of my favorite essential oils, which I don't know if you can see this in the screen here. This is Balance. I use doTERRA products, which are certified therapeutic. So they're really good for the body, mind, and soul. And Balance is a very grounding blend. So what I would do is I would take a drop of the Balance, rub my wrists together, and take some deep breaths as I'm doing that grounding. So that's something that you can add to that practice. So when we're talking about mindfulness specifically, it's about open awareness, right? So you were grounding, you were aware of what was happening right here, right now.
Yep. No, that was great. It made me feel very relaxed. I think, a lot of people right now are very anxious, right? Anxiety, stressed. So that just made me just calm. It was very calming. It was awesome.
Good. Yeah. And it's just a very simple practice. You can do that anywhere. You can also do that standing. So just noticing your feet as you're standing, feet hip distance apart. You can even close your eyes if you're balanced.
And I felt like, going into meditation from that as well, right? That was awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the thing is I think the importance today is to stay connected to people. Even though we have social distancing, we need to really stay connected to other people, because that's going to help with anxiety, right? And stress and everything. And if you are going through more anxiety and stress, or even, suicidal things, you got to reach out immediately to somebody, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really important to ask for help. And, I'm going to back up for just 1 second and just talk about a framework that we'll discuss this in. So as human beings, we talk about it in addiction as the biopsychosocial spiritual model of addiction. And that's a big mouthful. But what that looks at is that's really who we are as human beings. We're biological, we're psychological, we're social, and we're spiritual. Right? So looking at every aspect and how we take care of ourselves. I know you had Dr. Kim on, and she talked a lot about the biological piece and taking care of your eating and your sleep and your routine and those kinds of things. So that's really important. And as far as social connection, that's one of the pieces as well, right? So and I'm hearing a lot of people talk about this, but it's really important to note that it's not social isolation, it's social distancing.
That's right.
So you can still have that connection, even, taking a walk. And even if there's other people around, you just keep that distance. You can still say hi, you can wave at your neighbors, you can, have conversations, but finding ways to connect is really, really important. So speaking specifically to mental health and to people who are having, suicidal thoughts and things like that, all of the mental health is considered an essential business. So all of the hospitals, the psych hospitals and facilities are still open. So if you're in an emergency, you can go, and say, I need help, right? So the first step, usually people reach out. So there is a suicide hotline, and we can add the link here. So my brain wasn't thinking about the number for that off the top of my head, but it's pretty easy to find. You can actually text the suicide hotline as well. So that's something that's important. As far as meetings, you were talking about, like, right now people can't go to 12-step meetings, right? Which is a big part of a lot of people's recovery. So there are a lot of Zoom meetings happening. So if you go to AA.org or NA.org, there's, so that's Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. They have Zoom meetings going on. And there's intherooms.com, which they've had online chats for a really long time. So they have upwards of 300 people in those meetings sometimes.
So don't feel alone, right? Number one, don't feel alone. And number two, reach out. Okay.
Absolutely.
There are so many people that are here to help you if you're going through anything right now. And I know I've been through a lot as well. So I can relate to people, especially, during times of crisis, because like I said, I've been through it. And definitely make sure that you're reaching out and doing the things, being in a routine every day. Don't let yourself be in bed every day, right? But get yourself in a routine, making sure that you're trying to take a walk, right? Or doing something, movement, getting on chats, FaceTime, Zoom, so you can see people. If you're not communicating, it'll make you feel better. Even if you get up and, get dressed and maybe even put on, makeup or whatever to make you feel good. And don't be hard on yourself, right? Don't be too hard on yourself through these times.
Yeah, the biggest thing is having self-compassion. So, people talk about mindfulness. It's a big buzzword right now. And mindfulness is not just about being aware of the present moment. It's about being aware with kindness and compassion. Because if we're sitting in a meditation, for example, or we're trying to sit still and quiet, and then we're going, oh man, I really stink at this. I can't sit still. I can't meditate. I'm blah, 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 whatever. You're not having kindness and compassion for yourself.
Right.
And that kindness and compassion is part of the mindfulness. So even if you're overeating right now, even if you've, slipped and you picked up a drink or a drug, or you slipped back into your mental health symptoms, having that kindness and compassion for yourself is really, really important.
And actually, that's a good thing, because I have seen so many people out there as far as eating and overeating. So I've gone to Hippocrates, where I met Dr. Kim and stuff, and other wonderful people, and, to lose weight. And so fortunate, and obviously health and weight and everything that goes together. Fortunately, I have gained 2 pounds, but, I've seen people that have said they've gained 20 and this and that. So, just making sure that you are not too hard on yourself, but trying to get into nutrition as well through this, right?
Right, absolutely. So when I talk about the biopsychosocial spiritual model, and I know that's a huge mouthful, but biologically it's picking something. So picking something from that category. What I would say is, if you look at each of those 4 categories, pick something there that you can work on, that you might want to commit to yourself, or something, something simple and easy. So maybe that is walking. So walking is the biological part, right? It's the exercise, but it's also the spiritual part. Connecting with nature is a form of spirituality. Meditation is a form of spirituality. Deep breathing, mindfulness, reading something, whether it's a Bible or, reading something on Eastern philosophy, or even just something for personal growth, that's spiritual as well. And then that's social connection. So maybe even, taking a walk, and maybe talk on the phone. Probably not FaceTime while you're walking, because that's probably not the best idea. Or even just walking with someone in your household, if that's available to you.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so we talked about mindfulness, and what about yoga and aromatherapy and things like that as well?
Sure. So, yoga is more than just exercise. So obviously that's a big part of it, right? There's 8 limbs of yoga. We won't go too much into all of that piece, but the important part to remember is that there's a lot of aspects. So we're doing the physical practice, but we're also doing the mindfulness practice, the meditation practice, the self-study practice, which is this things like reading, learning something new. For a lot of people, learning something new right now can be really helpful, but for a lot of people, they're back in, crisis mode. I talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs with you a little bit earlier. And what that is just the hierarchy of us as human beings and what we take a look at. And the first 2 rungs are about physiological needs, right? Food, air, water, sex, sleep, right? Which fits with the biological. And then safety, which is huge right now. So illness, personal safety and security, shelter. So those are that's where our brain goes. We go back into that crisis, that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And we're not really able to think about other things. For a lot of people, it's, oh, I'm creative, I'm getting all these things done. And then there's a lot of people who are completely overwhelmed. So finding that balance, finding little things that you can do, little mindfulness and yoga practices. It doesn't mean you have to do a full hour. It doesn't mean you're doing hot yoga, right? So it might be something as simple as a mudra. So a mudra is a hand gesture that can be really helpful for your mood, for your practices, for compassion and self-acceptance. So I want to teach you a mudra right now, if that's okay. It's super simple. Yeah.
I've never heard of it, so I'm excited.
Yeah, so mudra is just a gesture. It's a fancy word. Sanskrit is a language of yoga, so that's where that comes from. So it's kind of like a prayer position. So there's actually, prayer position it's Anjali Mudra. So that's one, right? Either with the thumbs at the heart, which is more for the heart chakra or for, for love and connection, right? And then you can also take it to the bridge of your nose and your forehead, which is a little bit more spiritual, and there's a little bit of a bow involved in that. So just as a reminder, most people know this prayer position in one way, shape, or form, right? So even just sitting here and taking a deep breath, maybe connecting the thumbs to the heart and feeling what that feels like. Good. And then allow the eyes to open if they closed. And then also related to the Anjali Mudra is Dove Mudra or Kapoda Mudra. So this one is specifically for compassion and self-acceptance. So the thumbs stay at the heart center, the hands stay in prayer, but you allow the hands to cup. So there's kind of an openness. So if you see can you see my hands? There's an openness here.
Like this?
Yes. But your pinkies are still connected as well. So it's more of it's like a circle.
Oh,
so you can put something
like
there. Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, but keep the thumbs, the pinkies connected here like this.
Oh, like this.
And then the thumbs and then the fingertips, and then you're just opening in the middle.
Got it.
Yeah, and then the thumbs come back to the heart. And this is about compassion and self-acceptance. So along with a mudra, having a mantra or an affirmation or a thought that you can say to yourself can be really helpful. So it might be like, I'm doing the best I can right now.
I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm. And you can say that out loud, or you can say that in your mind, maybe as you breathe. It might also be something like love or accept or compassion. Whatever you choose, let's just take 2 breaths together. Good. And then you can allow the hands to come to the lap and release that mudra and that mantra.
Yep. This feels good.
Yeah. So going back to just briefly that biopsychosocial spiritual model, when we do a mudra, we're doing something physical, and the mantra is in that psychological piece. So that's about our thoughts. So a lot of times that fight, flight, or freeze, which is biological, also becomes a thought process in our head, right? So if we think about worst case scenario and we continue to think about worst case scenario, I like to call that the mental snowball. So it starts with a snowflake and it gets bigger and bigger until everything is completely overwhelming. So utilizing some kind of mantra or affirmation or something that you can say to yourself in a positive manner can help to combat those. In therapy, we call scientific part of that, or the medical model part of that, we call it cognitive behavior therapy, right? So it's reframing our thoughts. In the more Eastern philosophy, we talk about them as mantras, right, or affirmations.
Yeah. And our mind is so powerful, right? So everything that we do is, we can change our frame, our thought process like that, right? The snap of your finger. So everything that we do is going through our mind. What is it? Our mind is, I don't know how many thoughts it is. I don't remember all that, but it's crazy.
I think of something like 60 or 70,000 or something like that. I don't really know either, but yeah, it's a lot, and it's constant, and a lot of times we're not aware of it. So that's where the mindfulness can come in, is being more aware of the things that you're saying to yourself, especially if you're not feeling good. So if you're feeling physically or emotionally in a way, yucky, like that's my clinical term, yucky, then, being aware of that, being mindful and looking at, okay, what's going on with me right now? What am I thinking? What am I doing?
Right. And know you're not alone. I mean, we're all going through different stages through this, right? And just try to get your mind out of it. Know that we're all going to get through this. We are going to get through this. Things are going to be different, things are going to change, but we're going to be okay. So just keep reminding yourself that we're going to be okay, right? And try to do things, because obviously a lot of people, and even myself, I'll wake up, this has affected everybody. There's nobody I know out there that hasn't affected. And it also affects, obviously, a lot of our businesses, right? A lot. So I just wake up and, you can get depressed. I've been depressed. I've woken up depressed. I've woken up, but I try to really keep in a schedule, and I try to work out a little bit, and I, get dressed and don't stay in my PJs all day, and, come to the office, try to put on some makeup, not maybe every day if I'm not in front of people, but doing the things and trying to keep in a routine to make me feel good, right? And then I try to stay out of my mind and try to keep optimistic, okay, and not negative thoughts in my mind, right?
Sure. Absolutely. And it's really important to have a balance of that, right? Because a lot of times when we talk about thinking positively or being optimistic, for some people that can be completely overwhelming. Have you ever been around somebody when you're not in a good mood and they're super positive and it's just like, like, go away. That's so annoying, right? So it's about finding that balance and allowing yourself to not be okay as well, and doing something that helps you to feel better in that moment, talking about it with someone, utilizing all those methods that we talked about, going to a meeting, calling a therapist, talking to a friend, journaling, writing it down, getting those thoughts out of your head can be so incredibly helpful, even if it's just for a few moments. What I would say about that is to give yourself a time limit, because if you allow yourself to sit in that, and it's the same thing with the news. If you want to know what's going on, I have alerts on my phone, and that's how I know what's going on. Other than that, I don't sit in front of the TV, because it's overwhelming. You'll overwhelm yourself. And so give yourself a time limit to just sit in it, to express those feelings, to have the feelings of overwhelm or sadness or whatever, because that's important. That's an important part of the grieving process of a change in our way of life right now.
Right.
And then look at not just how do I be more positive, but something that's more realistic. Maybe looking at all the times that you have gone through something that's been difficult, even if it was when you were a little kid. You have been through, even if you don't believe that right now, you have been through a lot of things, and you've gotten to the other side because you had the tools. Even if you didn't know what you did, you had the tools to get through it. Yeah. So starting there and then building on that.
And a couple of people said that were so important. I think, definitely let yourself, but give yourself a time limit. Okay. So I am going to go through this emotion, be in my own pity party or whatever for the next 10 minutes, but then I'm done. I got to get it out of my mind and I got to move on, and I'm okay. I'm going to do something that makes me feel good. And then also social media, okay, being on social media, the negativity of it, and the news. So I give myself on news about 15 minutes a day. Okay. Just because I just want to know what's going on, but I don't get myself involved. Just like politics, I'm not involved with. I don't like to see all the negativity of things, right? So those are really good. What about aromatherapy?
So aromatherapy can be a huge help in all those aspects. The biological piece. So the biological part of aromatherapy, and I don't know if you can see them. I'll pull them up in a second. The biological aspect of it is that these oils the molecules are so small, they get to your brain faster than any drug. So smoking is the quickest way to get something to your brain, to pass that blood-brain barrier, which is the protective mechanism. And that's about 7 to 12 seconds. The oils, it's somewhere around 5.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So they get to your brain a lot faster just by smelling it. And our sense of smell is so powerfully related to memory and emotion that it can make a huge difference. So in the biological piece, you have that how it affects the brain. You have the immune boosting pieces. So specifically what I'm using right now is On Guard, which is, can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. So On Guard is the protective blend. So it's got things like cinnamon and clove and wild orange, which are really good for the immune system. And these are, like I said, certified therapeutic grade, so you can take them internally. You want to be very mindful of what you take internally, because the ones that you buy in the store, just because they say they're organic, doesn't mean that they're safe to take internally.
Can someone buy that? How do they buy it?
Yeah, so doTERRA specifically is you have to get it through a doTERRA wellness advocate, which I am one, and there you can find those online as well at the doTERRA website. And we can leave that information. It'll be with all my information as well. And then oregano is has one of the most powerful antibiotic properties, and they've used it for thousands of years.
So how do you use them?
Okay, so there's 3 different ways to use them. There is topically, which is on the skin, like I showed you when I put it on my wrists, right? And you want to be mindful because we can have skin sensitivity. So you want to dilute them with a carrier oil, such as coconut or almond or something like that. There's aromatically, which would be the inhaling part of it, right? So if I put it in my hands and I take some deep breaths and I inhale it, that's one way of doing it aromatically. Also using a diffuser, right? Some people put them in humidifiers too. You have to be mindful, but that's aromatically, so it's coming out in the air. And then there's internally, which is what I was just talking about with some of those oils. So depending on the oil, you'll know which way is going to be the most helpful. There's lots of information out there. Of course, I'm a resource. doTERRA is a resource as well.
So you talked about 3 different ones. Are there more that you recommend? Yeah.
There are more. Okay. Yeah, so On Guard and oregano are the ones for the immune system. There's also tea tree. Breathe is my favorite for respiratory. So this is a blend that includes peppermint, rosemary, eucalyptus, a lot of oils that are really good for the respiratory system, which is really important right now, right? We want to take care of our respiratory system. I've been putting Breathe or eucalyptus in my mask just as a way to, not only, for me, it kind of makes me anxious to have to wear the mask a long time. So I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but putting the eucalyptus or putting the Breathe on the inside of it not only helps me to calm down and balance, but it also helps my respiratory system. So it helps to protect it and make it easier to breathe. I actually have asthma, so I use that as a way to help me open up my lungs a little bit more.
Wow, that's
yeah. So those are for the biological, the immune system part of it. The other one I talked about was balance, right? Which is a grounding blend. It's really good for anxiety, really good for calming the mood. The one that everybody knows, lavender, right? So lavender is very calming. Any kind of tree scent. So anything that's like fir or spruce or cedar wood, any kind of tree scent is going to be very grounding. So it'll be very calming.
And what is something like that? How much, just for anybody, how much is something like that, those cost?
Sure. So for these particular, because of the level of purity, it's 100% oil, there's no additives, nothing in it. There's somewhere between $20 and $30 a bottle. Now, each bottle this size is going to get 250 drops. The average need, so the average dosage for an adult would be about 2 drops. Wow. So it lasts a long time, right? And so there are some that are higher cost based on how it takes, how long it takes to process them and things like that. Before you get into more questions about that, I wanted to tell you about one last one. Yeah. It's called Peace. So this is like my go-to right now. So peace is the reassuring blend, right? So it's really, right now, most of us are looking for peace in general, but especially right now, any form of peace can be really, really helpful. So peace is from the emotional aromatherapy kit and support here. So it's got some of those scents that I already talked about. It's got lavender, it's got vetiver, which is a tree scent, an earth scent. It's got lang lang, which is very calming. Marjoram, I think I got them all. Frankincense, which is the king of oils, right? And so frankincense is one of the things they brought to Jesus. So if you remember that, that's because it was like one of the most expensive things they could bring, right? Because of how powerful it is. So it has like all of the grounding and calming blends that you can. So it's amazing for this time.
Now, how many different types of oils do you use like in a day?
Well, I use most of those.
Every day?
Every day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some internally, some aromatically. I diffuse, depending on how I'm feeling, I'm going to diffuse something at night. I always have Breathe in my diffuser, and then I'll add some kind of grounding scent to help me sleep, something earthy. And then there's also...
You put something to help you sleep, or do you put... Because I hear people put stuff on pillows, and is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do that as well. I'll put lavender on my pillow sometimes. So you can really easily put it in a glass bottle, like put a few drops of that in a glass bottle with just water and just spray it on your pillow. So that can be really nice. I'll do that frequently, or the peace even as well. There's also happy scent. So if you're having more of that depressive feeling, which just when you're overwhelmed, a lot of times it can turn into that, hopelessness and that feeling like things aren't going to change as well. So any kind of citrus scent is really good for that. So that might be like lemon or wild orange or bergamot, which is my favorite. Bergamot, they put that in Earl Grey tea. Most people don't really know what bergamot is. It's a flower. It's a citrus seed flower. But yeah, it's really good and also for confidence. So any kind of earthy blend is going to be more like the tree scents, calming, and anything that's citrus is going to be more uplifting, right? And you can find a combination of the two.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Tell everybody if you want to add anything, for sure, but also we obviously want your contact information. We'll also put it below, and what you do exactly. So what kind of different things can you help people through, especially with what we're going through today? If they wanted to reach out, what can you help them through?
Sure, absolutely. So my business is LL Counseling and Wellness. You can find that on Facebook or llcounselingandwellness.com. I'm a private practitioner, so as a licensed mental health counselor, I do individual therapy. I do yoga therapy. So that's a combination. Some of the things that we just practiced as part of, and more movement even as part of the therapy practice, as well as the aromatherapy. So I combine all of those things, the physical, the emotional, the biopsychosocial, spiritual, if you will, into my individual therapy practice. I also do groups. So my big thing right now that I just took to Zoom is my yoga therapy. I keep it limited to around 12 people, but it's not just yoga, it's yoga and group therapy together. So we do some movement just like we did. We might, and that's something that you can do, or you can get them ahead of time to bring them to the class. And then it's an opportunity to talk about and process the things that we're going through. So you're learning tools, you're having an opportunity to sit with other people and talk about what's going on with a professional such as myself, and learning other ways to manage it holistically, right? So with the yoga, the mindfulness, the aromatherapy, and talk therapy, which is also really important.
Awesome. And what's the difference of reaching out and just going and buying my own aromatherapy, or getting it through you? What's the difference of just going out and buying it? We don't know what's with.
Sure. So the two biggest differences is the constitution, right? You don't know what's in it. These are certified therapeutic grade, and they're third-party tested. So there's lots of research on their effectiveness and those kinds of things. And when you buy them in the store, they only have to have, I believe it's 3%, don't quote me on it for sure, but 3% of the oil in it to say it's organic.
Wow.
And to say it's acceptable. So even breathing it in, I mean, a lot of people will breathe in some of those just for the smell and things like that, which is fine. But, if you're going to put those in your body, I would definitely recommend it's passing through that blood-brain barrier. So the healthier and the more, certified organic, the better. And then you're also getting a practitioner such as myself who can say, based on what you're feeling emotionally, physically, whatnot, what's going to be the best oil for you. Right? And some of that's going to depend on your sense of smell and what feels good for you. So we have to try out different things, but I have the knowledge, with my background in clinical psychology, as well as my yoga background, to pick out, what's going to be the best for you.
And how to use it, right?
And how you use it, absolutely.
Which is huge, because I'll be honest with you, I've bought in a couple, but I just put it on my pillow and I'm like, what is this? I mean, it smells good, but I'm like, what is it really doing, right? So for somebody like me, I have really no clue how to use it. So definitely using somebody like you to guide me through it and to pick the right things and is exactly what I need. So the best way to reach out to you, is it through Facebook, website, or what is it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously the easiest way to get me directly would be the phone, but you can go llcounselingandwellness.com. There's a contact me page there. It also has a link to my doTERRA, but I would encourage you, my consultation's always free, so I would encourage you to reach out to me.
Oh, wow.
You can call my phone number directly, 407-435-5013, or you can go there, or Facebook. So I put a lot of content on my Facebook that has some of this stuff, and I just actually, with all the time I had, I just did posts for like the next 2 weeks or so you'll get some good content there. at LL Counseling and Wellness. But yeah, my consultation, it's, about 20 minutes. So we can kind of figure out, whether it's just oils, whether it's therapy, yoga therapy, just some individual yoga stuff, whatever the case may be, we can determine if we're a good fit. So yeah, I always offer that for free, and just to kind of get an idea, and we can do that either video or phone.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Lori. So much awesome information today. And I really appreciate you joining me for our podcast. And I'm sure all of our listeners just really learned a lot, as I did as well. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a great day.